Hi, RLA Jack here with my first episode in my program flow series. And this episode is going to be on Boolean expressions and logic. So this series is going to be mostly about how to make MATLAB not just run through a single list of commands that you set out for it, but instead to branch and change what it does depending on certain conditions, or repeating something many times, or doing something for a set of different elements or cases, or stopping any of this. So we'll particularly be covering if, for, while, and the basic interruptions, and end and return. And for now, we're going to have to start with Booleans because I formed the foundation for if and while structures. So what is a Boolean? It is essentially a 1 or a 0, where 1 is true and 0 is false. It's also known as a logical variable, true or false, but MATLAB has no true or false. So instead, we have to deal with ones and zeros. So if I do something like 6 is equal to 6, this is an expression. It has either truth or falseness. And MATLAB will not let you give it an expression like, say, some variable you haven't defined, where the truth or falseness is ambiguous because you haven't defined that variable. It's ambiguous. But instead, if you have maybe, this is the simple case, 6 equals 6, well, it sort of breaks because it turns out for assignment you use things like a is equal to 6. You can set the variable a equal to 6. But for testing whether or not two things are equal, you have to use the double equals sign. And that will tell you, yes, 6 is equal to 6. Say I wanted to test if the variable a is equal to 6, which it currently is. So I can do a double equals 6. So this is a Boolean expression. All of these are Boolean expressions except these, which aren't and were invalid. But you can see that whenever I type something true, the true stuff simplifies down to a 1. And if I type something false, like a is equal to 5, which a is equal to 6, so that's false, it returns a 0. So there you go. You can see that this is something called a Boolean variable. So if I do something like b is equal to a double equals 5, and I do whose, it'll tell me that b is illogical and it carries only 1 byte. Instead of a number, like a double, but in many ways you can still use these as numbers. So if you do something like b minus 5, you'll still get negative 5. Okay, so I'm back to the basics of Booleans. So I have my variable a, which is equal to 6, and I will test if a is equal to 6, and I will have to use double equals. I'll always use double equals when testing. If something's true, I get a 1. If something's false, like a equals 5, I get a 0. Okay, so let's look at some other operations. So suppose that I have a is not equal to 5. So this is testing whether or not a is not equal to 5. And it turns out that this is true. This is just due to this little not equal or tilde symbol up in the upper left hand of your keyboard. At least that's where it is on mine. And you probably haven't had to use it many times before, but now that's how you type not equal to in MATLAB, as opposed to an exclamation point in some other languages. So there's that. There's also your standard greater than or less than. So is a greater than 5? Well, of course it is, because it's 6. Is a less than 5? No, because it's 6. Is 5 less than 5? Well, the answer is no. But say that you want 5 to be less than 5, well, instead you can use less than or equal to. And you type it just as you say it, so you say less than or equal to 5. And you can do 5 is greater than or equal to 5. Those are two other logicals. So that's pretty much it for the most basic expressions. So now we might have several variables or several statements, and we want them to combine to form a better statement. So say I want both 5 to be equal to 5 and 5 to be less than 6. Well, this double and sign, double ampersand operator, will combine them. If I want to do 5 is equal to 5, or then I will have to use the horizontal or vertical bar key just below the backspace, which is shift backslash, and that will combine the two to form or. One thing about and or is or only requires one to be true, while and requires both. So if I say 5 is equal to 5 or 5 is equal to 6, that is true. But if I change it over to and, then both must be true for this to be true, so it returns false. Okay, so that's and or, and that's how you're going to combine most things. Also, pretty much everything about commutative or associative, like all of your normal algebra properties apply whenever. I think this is associative. But it doesn't really matter where you put, well, you can use parentheses here, is what I'm saying. So if you want to do 5 is equal to 5 and 5 is equal to 6, or 5 is equal to 6, you can do that. Parentheses work, and it's evaluated from inside to outside. But any properties that are guaranteed for logic, MATLAB will also guarantee, because this is just standard logic. Okay, so that's basics of Booleans. I'm sorry for the slight slip up near the middle, but you know, that's fast video making for you. Alright, so I'll see you next time when I cover if statements, which uses these heavily.